What happens if you try to build a metropolis starting with small suburbs instead of a single downtown? Today, we're starting a new city skylines project where the goal is a little different from the usual city build. Instead of growing one large city from the center outward, we're going to build a series of small suburbs and slowly connect them together over time. The long-term plan is to turn these separate communities into one massive, interconnected metropolis. But building a city this way comes with its own set of challenges. Managing infrastructure, transportation, and services across multiple growing districts can become complicated very quickly. So let's get started and see if this suburban network can eventually grow into a thriving city. Welcome to Spring Valley. The first thing we need is a connection from the interstate into town. Without that link, nothing else can grow. I start by building a short stretch of road that leads directly off the interstate and into the area where the first suburb will develop. At the end of that road, I place a roundabout. It might seem simple right now, but both the road and this roundabout will become very important later as the town begins to grow and traffic starts increasing. Just like I do in Ostriv, I prefer to place all of the basic infrastructure first before letting the simulation begin. That means setting up the road layout and preparing the area where the first neighborhood will grow. Once everything is in place, I can start the game and let the city begin developing without immediately needing to pause and fix problems. To get things started, I add a few short roads branching off the roundabout. These will form the foundation of the first neighborhood in Spring Valley. One thing we have to watch carefully in the early game is the budget. Money is tight when a city is just beginning. Zoning itself doesn't cost anything, and the buildings will grow automatically over time. But anything we place directly on the map, roads, utilities, services, and infrastructure, all comes out of the city's budget. If the city runs out of money and we can't take out another loan, the entire project can stall before it even gets started. So every decision here needs to be made carefully while Spring Valley begins to take shape. Before any citizens can move in, the town needs a basic water system. I place a water intake pump to supply fresh water to the city and connect it to the pipe network that will serve the first neighborhood. The sewer system also needs an outlet to remove wastewater from the town. One very important rule in city skylines is to place the sewage outlet downstream from the water intake. If the outlet is placed upstream, contaminated water can flow back into the city supply, and that can make your citizens sick very quickly. Some maps don't have a river, so the setup can be a little different depending on the terrain. The next thing the town needs is electricity. For this map, I'm starting with wind turbines. They provide clean energy and are a good early option for powering a small town. As the city grows and new technologies unlock, we'll eventually upgrade to more advanced forms of clean energy. One thing to keep in mind with wind turbines is that they produce noise pollution. Because of that, I make sure to place them well away from residential areas so the noise doesn't affect the citizens living nearby. Another important thing to plan for early is the location of industrial areas. Industry should always be kept well away from residential housing. Industrial buildings create ground pollution, which can spread into nearby neighborhoods. If homes are placed too close to polluted areas, citizens can become sick and the overall health of the city will suffer. Because of this, it's always a good idea to leave a buffer zone between industry and housing so the pollution doesn't reach residential districts. One important lesson I've learned while playing City Skylines is to let the simulation catch up as the city grows. Expanding too quickly can cause large swings in the city's economy and workforce. There are 3 demand bars to watch carefully: residential, commercial, and industrial. The goal is to keep these bars relatively balanced. Too much residential zoning can create unemployment if there aren't enough jobs available. Too much industry can cause labor shortages, and too much commercial development can lead to businesses failing if there aren't enough customers. Building too little can create similar problems. So the key is to expand steadily and give a simulation time to stabilize. Here I catch a problem early that could have caused serious trouble later. I forgot to connect the wind turbines together with power lines. Without those connections, the electricity can't reach the rest of the city. Luckily, I noticed the issue while the city still had enough funds to fix it quickly. Power outages can create major problems for a growing town. If electricity isn't restored in time, buildings will shut down and citizens may begin abandoning the city. Fixing it early keeps Spring Valley moving in the right direction. It's also important to keep an eye on your utilities, especially water, sewage, and electricity. With wind turbines, power production can sometimes drop if the wind speed changes. When that happens, the city may temporarily lose some of its available electricity. Coal power plants don't have that problem because they produce a steady supply of power. The downside, however, is pollution. Coal plants create significant ground pollution in the surrounding area, which can affect nearby neighborhoods. So while wind power can fluctuate a bit, it keeps the environment much cleaner for the city as it grows. Another thing worth paying attention to in city skylines is the chirper. Chirper acts like the city's social media feed, where citizens post comments about what's happening around town. It might seem like a small feature, but it can actually give useful information about the state of the city. Citizens will often mention problems such as power issues, traffic concerns, or service shortages, giving you early warnings before those problems grow larger. At this point, Spring Valley reaches its first milestone, Little Hamlet. This milestone unlocks the ability to take out loans, which can be very helpful in the early stages of building a city. At this level, however, only one loan is available until the city reaches the next milestone. Each time the city levels up, you also receive a financial bonus that helps fund further development. Loans can allow you to expand infrastructure faster than your current budget might normally allow, but they need to be used carefully. Borrowing too much money without a plan can quickly drain the city's finances, so it's important to use them wisely as the city grows. As the town grows, the city's income from taxes will begin to increase. More citizens moving in means more homes, businesses, and industry contributing to the city's economy. However, it's still possible to overspend on government services and infrastructure, especially in the early stages of development. If the city's budget drops into the red, it's important to correct the problem as quickly as possible. Adjusting expenses and letting the city stabilize can help bring the finances back under control. If everything goes well, the city soon reaches the next milestone, Worthy Village. This unlocks several important features that help the town continue to grow. At this level, we gain access to services like police and fire departments, the ability to set city policies, and the option to purchase additional land for expansion. A second loan also becomes available. One strategy one like to use is taking the new loan and paying off the previous one. That way, if something unexpected happens with the city's finances, there is still a loan available as a backup. Managing loans carefully can give the city some breathing room while it continues to grow. Even though the option to purchase new land is now available, I decide to wait for the moment. Instead, I want Spring Valley to continue growing until it reaches the busy town milestone. Once we reach that level, the plan is to expand across the river and start building a brand new settlement called Riverdale. Riverdale will begin as a small suburb of its own, but eventually it will be connected back to Spring Valley as the larger metropolitan area begins to take shape. One feature I really enjoy in city skylines is the ability to follow a vehicle or a person as they move through the city. It gives you a street-level view of how things are actually working in your town. I especially like to use this feature when testing bus routes. By following the bus along its route, you can get a much clearer idea of how efficient the route really is. Watching the route this way makes it much easier to adjust and optimize the system as the city grows. As the population continues to grow, Spring Valley soon reaches the next milestone. At around 1,400 citizens, the city levels up to tiny town. Each new milestone unlocks additional buildings, services, and tools that help manage the growing population. As the city expands, these new options become essential for keeping everything running smoothly. One challenge with rapid development will become obvious a little later in the city's growth. As the population increases, the city eventually needs to build a high school so citizens can become educated. Over time, industries begin requiring more educated workers in order to operate efficiently. If the city expands too quickly, there isn't enough time for students to complete the education cycle. When that happens, factories may begin leaving town because they can't find the educated workforce they need. In situations like this, sometimes the best solution is simply letting the simulation run for several in-game years, so the education system can catch up with the city's growth. Here I run into another problem. I didn't account for the drop in wind speed when planning the city's power capacity. Because of that, the wind turbines aren't producing enough electricity and the city experiences a blackout. At this point, the budget is also running low, so I only have enough funds to place a couple more wind turbines to bring the power supply back up. Situations like this are a good reminder that when using wind power, it's important to leave some extra capacity in the system to handle changes in wind speed. At this point, the only real option is to take out a loan. This is exactly why I mentioned earlier that it's a good idea to pay off the first loan when the second one becomes available. By doing that, you always keep a loan available as a backup in case something unexpected happens. Situations like this, where the city suddenly needs additional infrastructure, can happen quickly, and having that financial safety net allows the city to recover before the problem gets out of control. It's also important to pay off loans as soon as possible once the city's finances allow it. Eliminating that debt not only reduces the city's expenses, but it also restores your ability to take another loan if something unexpected happens. Having that fallback option available can make a big difference when the city suddenly needs additional funding to solve a problem. As the city continues to grow, there comes a point where the power lines are no longer needed. Once buildings and infrastructure are close enough together, electricity will automatically transfer between them. At that stage, the power grid becomes connected through the city itself, allowing the power lines to be removed. This also frees up the land that was previously used for the power lines, making it available for zoning and further development. As the population continues to grow, Spring Valley reaches another milestone at around 2,400 citizens, Boomtown. This milestone unlocks several new options for the city. We can now purchase another parcel of land, allowing the city to begin expanding into new areas. It also unlocks the bus system, which becomes an important tool for managing transportation as the city grows. Establishing bus routes early can help reduce traffic and move citizens more efficiently between residential areas, workplaces, and commercial districts. This milestone also unlocks the postal service and the ore industry. Both of these can be useful as the city continues to grow, but for now they aren't the main focus. The goal at this stage is to keep the city relatively small and stable while the first suburb develops. The postal service will be added a little later as the population increases. As for ore mining, it isn't a priority for this city at the moment, so that industry will remain and use for now. Another advantage of reaching the Boomtown milestone is access to advanced wind turbines. These turbines produce significantly more power than the standard ones we've been using earlier in the game. Upgrading to the advanced turbines helps stabilize the city's electricity supply and reduces the number of turbines needed to power the growing population. That brings us to the end of this episode as Spring Valley continues to take shape. In this video, we connected the town to the interstate, built the initial road network, and set up the essential infrastructure including water, sewage, and electricity. As the population grew, we worked through several challenges such as power shortages, balancing development demands, and managing the city's finances through careful use of loans. Along the way, Spring Valley reached several important milestones including Little Hamlet, Worthy Village, Tiny Town, and finally Boomtown, unlocking new services and options that will help the city continue to grow. In the next phase, the plan is to continue developing Spring Valley and eventually expand across the river to begin building the new suburb of Riverdale, which will become part of the future metropolitan area. If you enjoyed watching the city come together, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others who enjoy city building games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.